And welcome to A Course in Miracles 365. I'm your host, Tomas Garza, and I thank you for joining me here today on Enlightened World Network. This is a very intense and very special live stream today because, as you can see from the title, we're looking at Workbook Lesson 13 in A Course in Miracles. So, why is this one so intense? Well, we're delving into our fear today. Let us all dispense with the notion that spirituality is all rainbows and unicorns, positive vibes only, feel good only. I mean, that's great, but that's not where the real action is, as we discover all of the time. We discover that we really have to examine and look at all of our stuff. And if you want to insert another word for stuff that starts with an S, please do. All right, so let me just take a couple of minutes here while we wait for people to jump on the feed and just thank all of you for tuning in. As always, I really appreciate all of your support, your comments, the shares. Thank you so much for sharing this. This is what I want to do ultimately, is just to show up and to share my experience with you. And if you are getting something positive and of value out of this, I do hope that you'll share this with everyone in your social network, friends, family, whoever that is, and that you'll invite them to like Enlightened World Network and all of the network's programming, as it's all very in-depth and all fueled 100% by love and the energy of love, to which we're awakening at the subtitle of this live stream, Awakening to Love. So thank you so much for joining me. All right, let's get into this. Lesson 13 of the workbook tells us that a meaningless world engenders fear. That really does make sense, doesn't it? If we're looking around and we realize, we accept, even if we don't accept, if we're willing to at least entertain the idea that everything we see is meaningless, meaningless. Think of yesterday's lesson. It's going to engender some resistance, right? A part of us is going to say, no, this is real. This is real. This jacket is real. This face is real. This body, real. The rug behind me, it's real. How can you say it's not? And the ego loves to say that to us. It's that little voice perched on our shoulder, whispering to us that we're wrong. Yeah, this has meaning. Stay here and be miserable. Stay here and seek, but don't find. One of the ego's dictates is we'll seek here in A Course. You may be familiar with that. Yeah, we are naturally going to resist and be afraid of some of these ideas. Why? They go against all of our conditioning. And like it or not, and of course at first we're not going to like that. Nobody likes to hear that we've been conditioned and, well, brainwashed, honestly, into thinking that what has absolutely no reality is the only reality. It's 180 degrees backwards. And spirituality, awakening, is the process of undoing that conditioning. That's going to engender fear. Why? If we identify with the ego fears its own demise, and rightly so. And it actually says this in today's lesson in the comments for lesson 13. The ego fears the void that we create when we recognize that we're looking at a meaningless world. It's not us. The ego rightly fears that we're going to fill this space with love, with God, with ourself, with a capital S. And it would be 100% right, correct about that. Yeah. Lesson 13 says, this is the only thing, I'm paraphrasing, this is the only thing that the ego is actually right about, that if we saw it for what it is, we would leave it behind. Most definitely. Yeah, I mean, that's what we all want. We all want joy, happiness, the constant experience of love, of knowing who we really are. So why wouldn't we leave behind something that we saw through and knew to be false? Just leave it behind. And you don't have to do pitched battle with it. The ego is not an opponent. In truth, we have no opponents. We don't need to kick fear in the face, like a lot of people say. Now, nothing against that mantra, kick fear in the face. If it works for you, excellent. Continue to use what works for you and that you know and feel to guide you toward who you really are. Let me present a different take on that here. We don't need to kick fear or anything in the face because we don't need to make an opponent where there is none. We don't need to make an opponent where we in fact have no opponent. The truth of who we are simply just outshines all that away. We don't need to create opponents. We do that all the time, don't we? Yeah. Think of how you've created opponents in your own life. That's an ego trick, something the ego loves to keep us trapped in a negative feedback loop of get just enough and desire more, right? Get just enough and desire more. Never be satisfied, insatiable. More, right? More supposed bliss, a better relationship, a better car, a Mercedes-Benz S-Class. Ooh, all right. Yeah, never enough. Bigger house, more, crave, desire. And pick up these devices, and what happens? We're inundated with messages that reinforce that. Nothing against people that are doing legitimate commerce online, things like that. It's just something that exists in the world, and the ego uses everything as its tool to keep us from examining the truth of who we really are. Now, that's what meditation is for. That's what A Course in Miracles is for. It's what any authentic spiritual tradition is for, is to take a pause and create some space for ourselves so that we can fill that void with love, so we can reveal the truth of who we really are. That's what it's for. Meditation is for creating space, not what we consider physical space, as in what we would consider a distance, say, between two cities, for example, but emotional, mental, psychological space where we can make a different decision. Space where we can choose love over fear. Very, very important. It's critical for us to create that space in whatever way works for us. There are some techniques of meditation that you may resonate with and not others. You may practice yoga, you may take a hot bath, you may just take a moment and breathe and not even call it meditation. So whatever you do to connect with who you really are, whatever form that self-care looks like, it's very, very important. It's critical, in fact, that we all do that. So in italics here, And lesson 13, this is toward the bottom of the page. If you're looking at the print book here, in italics, it says, a meaningless world engenders fear because I think I am in competition with God. How about that? A meaningless world engenders fear because I think I'm in competition with God. Just sit with that idea. You don't have to dwell on it. The workbook goes on to say, yeah, don't dwell on that idea beyond the 3 or 4 practice periods for today. Why? Because we don't want to induce way too much fear or stress, drama, trauma into your life. It's going to be shocking enough to the ego to even state this. And the ego, in fact, wants to usurp the throne of God, so to speak. Now, there really actually isn't a throne, but the ego wants to be in charge. And it is separation, it is fear. So, being fear, the ego is naturally afraid. It's going to want to create a competition. It's going to want to set up a ritual combat where there is, in fact and in truth, no ritual combat to be done. Spirituality is merely a process of awakening to the truth of who we really are. And I think you know who that is. Deep down, you know. And whether you're ready to allow that, it's up to you. But I hope that you may be, because when you do, it sure is beautiful and it sure is fun. All right. In working on this workbook lesson for today, again, the workbook says, and I stress, I wouldn't dwell on the idea that you're in competition with God in your mind. We feel like we're in competition with God. No wonder we're afraid, right? Many of us grew up in traditions that talked about sin and hellfire and brimstone and extraordinary suffering and being cast into the pit of flames forever if you didn't conform to, well, in my case, what Hoffmantown Baptist Church in Albuquerque, New Mexico, naming names, said to do, right? Whatever that is for you, many of us grew up thinking that we're guilty, we're sinners. Well, does that resonate with you? Did it resonate then? Does it resonate now? It's a question only you can answer. My guess is if you're watching this live stream that it does not. It did not and it does not resonate. Yeah. And God being God, perfect love, just love, has no ego. Think about it. Love is not separation. That's why that's the only choice that we have to make. Do we choose love or do we choose fear? That's it. That is literally it. And we have, happily, the free will to make that choice every moment of every day. That's the question that I have for you. That's the question that A Course in Miracles has for you is, which are you choosing? Which are you choosing? Are you choosing love or are you choosing fear? Fear, the path of least resistance, obviously. It's the path that we're used to taking in the world where we think we're separate from everyone else, having our own separate experiences, cut off, disjointed, disconnected. In reality, it's the exact opposite. So why wouldn't the ego fear that? It is fear, so it fears its own demise and its own unreality because it's not real. So again, the workbook is very clear to just confine these thoughts today to the best that you can do to the practice period itself and have fun with it as much as you can, because I do want to tell you that when you make the decision to show up as love, to allow love, the presence of God in your life, it is a phenomenal experience. It's indescribable. And as the Course says, it's quite literally beyond words. Now, you may not have had that experience. And if you have not, that's okay. You will. One day, whenever that is. And who can say? Who can say when that is? Now, I had a Buddhist teacher who used to laugh and say, "You never know when enlightenment will come. I could be enlightened in 15 minutes." And he would laugh. And 15 minutes later, he would say, "Well, I'm not enlightened yet. You?" And we'd have a good laugh about that. But in truth, it's all about how we show up every moment of every day. So let's see if there are some comments or questions here. I'll bring up the live stream. And while I'm doing that, what I want to do here is I've said several times here on the stream that I am going to have special guests joining me. And that is most definitely going to be the case because starting tomorrow, Valentine's Day, my wife, Cindy Garza, is going to be joining me as my special guest. And that's going to be noon Eastern tomorrow. All right, a little bit after. I'll start at about 12:03, 12:04 Eastern time. Now, as you may know, Cindy is celebrating her birth month. Her actual birthday was February 2nd, but she's joining me and we're going to talk about the impact of A Course in Miracles on her life. So she's going to sit right here with me and I'm just going to interview her. And I'm going to sit back and let her tell you how this has profoundly, and I do mean profoundly, impacted her entire life, her entire way of being. And it's phenomenal. I have to tell you, the transformation has been off the charts. So she can't wait to come on tomorrow right here on this live stream to tell you all about that. So look forward to that. She'll be my first guest, first of many, in fact. So hello, everyone. Yes, Deirdre, hello. And Cindy, hello. Danielle, bonjour. Andrea, Lynn, hi, everybody. How are you all? Any questions or comments here while we're still running the live stream? I'm happy to do this. And if you have questions or comments, feel free to type them right here in the chat. What we'll do is, since Cindy is coming on live with me as my guest tomorrow, is we'll pick up the following lesson, which will be lesson 14 in the workbook on Monday, because again, this live stream is a daily live stream. So if I don't catch your comments and questions right here live right now, feel free to type them anyway. I'll be checking the comments throughout the day. And I thank you all for tuning in, and everybody have a great weekend. Stay tuned tomorrow for Cindy, my special guest, and enjoy this process, because I promise you, it actually, even though it brings up all of our dirt, that's coming up for release. It's coming up for release because we need to get rid of it. And if you're on a form of spiritual path or practice and you've done some of this work in whatever form that takes, and you've let some of that baggage go, you'll know. You just know what a profound, tremendous relief that is. So I hope that all of you experience that a lot, because it's very liberating and it's very fun. And if you have any questions for me, I'm here to help. All right. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.